Welcome to Creative Brews. I'm Kristen, and this is your weekly dose of creativity, where photography, design, and life come together. So, grab your favorite drink, and let's talk about what's brewing. Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Creative Brews. Today's topic, or episode, I should say, is probably sort of a touchy one for some people. That's not the reason why I want to talk about today's episode. Plus, on this podcast, I talk about all kinds of different things. A lot of things that I find interesting. And sometimes that might mean a touchy subject, right? Now, I don't know if I will ever talk about politics or religion. I'm just going to go ahead and get that out of the way. Maybe one day. I do find both of those things very interesting. However, I do know everyone out there who's listening, who's tuning in, we all have different points of view. We all have different belief systems. We all believe in something different, right? And that's amazing. That's what makes the world go round. But not everybody can handle that. Let's just be honest. Not everybody can handle the different opinions of everyone, right? So I'm different. I love to hear everybody's opinions. I might not agree with you, and I probably won't, but I'm not going to sit there and bash someone because they choose to believe in something different. We're all on this life journey. However, everybody's life journey is different. We're all in a different time of our life. We're all on this different paths and everything, if all of that makes sense. So, yes, I just wanted to go ahead and get all that out of the way because I know today's topic can be very touchy. However, I will not be talking about politics. That is not the reason why I want to talk about today's topic. I've wanted to talk about this topic for a while now. Just because, excuse me, just because I love challenges, I love to question things, I love to learn, I love to expand, to change, to evolve, to all these terms, right? So that might be, if you believe in the zodiac signs, that might be the Aquarius in me. I am truly an Aquarius. Although I do like to say I'm on the cusp. If that's a thing, I've heard mixed things about that. So, yes, I'm on the cusp of Capricorn and Aquarius. So, I'm a Cap Aquarius. Anyways, I'm an Aquarius. So, that might be the Aquarius in me, right? So, let's go ahead and get on into it because I'm really not trying to make today's episode super duper long. So, yes, we are talking about societal norms. Yay! Finally. So we were told, I'm sure at some point in time, we were all told if we followed the steps, life would work out. And here's the recipe. Here's what you need to do. Here's the black and white, right? Well, I mean, obviously, we've all been told, school, college, degree, job, marriage, house, and it goes on. Well, What if I told you a lot of people who did everything right are still exhausted, still in debt, and quietly confused about why life doesn't feel like what they were promised? Why a lot of people these days are on autopilot? Why everybody's dealing with anxiety? Why everybody has ADHD or ADD? And all of these things, right? Like, I kind of feel like if you're not questioning things, then you're asleep. Okay? So I'm going to keep it real. This episode is going to be really raw. I'm a realist at the end of the day. Um, I'm a daydreamer and a dreamer, period, but I'm also a realist. I don't see in black and white. I don't fit everything into a box. I'm very fluid. I see the grayscale. I see the color. I'm not asleep. I'm living my life to the fullest because one thing I do know, and this is true whether you want to believe it or not, our society was not built to help us. I really hate to say it like that. And I know a lot of people are going to have a hard time hearing that. But it really isn't. It's really to keep us stuck and to keep us where, quote unquote, they want us, right? We're the sheep and all this stuff. That's what I've heard and stuff like that. And again, I'm not talking politics. This isn't anything to do with politics. I just want to go ahead and reiterate that it's about pattern, noticing the patterns and things like that. So, again, what if the system was never actually built for you in the first place? I've already said my sort of standpoint on this. Look, today's episode is all about questioning. These are things to think about for the collective, for everybody tuning in, for everybody watching and stuff like that, which I know I haven't actually done a visual episode in a while. I do apologize. It's just been so crazy lately. Life has really been crazy in all the great ways. So yes, I will go into more of that maybe later on, maybe in a different episode. But anyways, yes, it's all about noticing the patterns, the pattern interruptions. So no, it's not about politics. And that's just something I wanted to clearly say up front. So it's just observational and it's about awareness. It's not about blame. It's not about politics. So, yes, we're going to be talking about quite a few different things here in today's episode. We've already talked about pattern recognition and stuff like that. So we're going to move into the real problem and conditioning, programming and all that stuff. So we don't just grow up in a society, we get conditioned by it. You sit down, be quiet, follow instructions, get the right answer, right? We learn how to comply before we ever learn how to question. We're not supported with, well, if you have questions, you can talk to me about that. And I feel like more so nowadays, it's getting to be a little more open with if you're someone who does have questions and stuff like that. Then yeah, you'll occasionally have someone who's willing to sit down and talk to you. A lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times, if you're someone who has questions, you get looked at like, what's wrong with you? Why are you questioning? Or someone literally, I have had people just look at me dumbfounded. They didn't say anything to me. They didn't say, why do you have all these questions or anything like that. I just find that odd, and I guess it's just not really a part of the norm. The societal norm is that you sit down, be quiet, follow instructions. And if you have questions, well, sorry. So, yeah. And that's where the programming starts. And it starts early, okay? And I'm not even going to talk about the generational stuff that happens. Like, maybe like the upbringing and the generational things that get passed down to other generations. That's going to be a different episode for a different time. I feel like if I go into that, we're going to be talking for a while. But that also feeds into the programming, the conditioning, and all that stuff. So, autopilot. This is something that I feel like not everybody is aware of. Our society is very much on autopilot. You wake up in the morning to your alarm. You maybe you're late, maybe you're not late. But anyways, you wake up day after day after day after day to your alarm. You get ready. You might eat breakfast. You might get some coffee. You go to work. You spend, 8 hours-ish if you're not working overtime. Then you get off. Maybe you go pick up your kids. Maybe you don't have kids. Maybe you go do something that you want to do. Maybe. A lot of times, though, the reality is that by the time we get off work, we're too tired. We find reasons of talking ourselves out of doing what we really wanted to do. So we end up working that 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Autopilot. Underline autopilot. If you look around, okay, I've got some homework for the people who are, tuning in, who are listening, and stuff like that. I want you, this is homework / a challenge. The next time you're out in public, or better yet, the next time you're at a restaurant, at a coffee shop, whatever it is, just take a look around and see how many people are on autopilot. How so many people have checked out. How so many people take their loved ones for granted. How so many people take their lives for granted. Believe me, I was one of these people. So I'm not just speaking out of my ass, for the lack of better words. I'm speaking from experience. A lot of this is from experience. Especially, this all hit me, especially becoming a new mom and stuff like that. So let's get back to the autopilot. Most people aren't even consciously choosing their lives. They're on autopilot. Not because they're lazy, but because no one ever taught them how to stop and question the direction. Because when you do question, you get looked at like you're the problem, like you have a problem. And the moment you do question it, it feels like something is wrong with you. Or like the questioning is maybe a little dysfunctional, but it's not dysfunction. It's awareness. So let's go ahead and move into the reality here. So in the US, because obviously that's where I live, most people spend roughly 12 years in standardized schooling. That's not to mention college. Some of us go to college, some of us don't. If you do go to college, you're probably going to be spending anywhere from 2 to 8 more years, depending on the degree and what you're going to school for. And success is largely measured by testing, memorization, and compliance. These are all in the box items, right? So starting out, like right out the gate, you already have a society that is already trying to put you in a box with a label, with a time and date and all this other stuff. Okay? Then when you graduate and you're told to figure it out, but I went to school for this degree and you all led me to believe that I would be able to find a job. And no, you're being thrown to the wolves, right? You're being left to defend for yourself or to fend for yourself. And you're just kind of being thrown into the water, sink or swim. I think that's the best way that I can put all of this. And you're never taught how to actually understand. We're never taught how to actually understand ourselves. We're just taught, memorize this. Well, we have a pop test or a pop quiz or whatever you want to call it. Well, that's not compliant with what we're learning. I think, I think out of all the generations, I think the millennial generation in particular, that might be a hot take or whatever you want to call it, unpopular opinion here, or hot take, whatever you want to call it, but I really think the millennial generation is here to disrupt the system. We're here to question things and to let's redo some things. Like all this stuff is old. The schooling system is old. That's just one example, right? I mean, we go to school and we learn things that, we might use, but a lot of it is not real life situations. Okay? So, anyways, again, not to mention college, right? So then you got to go to college. And if you want to go to a university, well, then you got to realize, okay, I'm going to be in debt probably. Unless you have money laying around, or unless, I know there's all kinds of avenues as far as grants and things like that go, but not everybody gets those, okay? Not everybody gets a grant. Not everybody gets money toward their tuition, right? So, but not to mention from school to college, they kind of are like, okay, well, look at these colleges, but they don't really like go into detail. Again, like the real life situations is what I'm talking about here. So, of course, comes college, and then a lot of people nowadays are faced with student loan debt. So even before, maybe you buy your car, even before you, maybe you buy a house. So not only are you already in debt because of your car and your house, unless, again, you're someone who can just outright pay for these items, but the everyday person is not able to do that. So you got car debt, you got home debt, and now you got student loan debt. And that's what millions of people have to deal with on the daily. And not to mention, many graduates end up either underemployed or in jobs that they never even wanted to be in the first place. And not to mention jobs that are not using their degree anyway. Or maybe they have to drop out. So not only do you have car debt, home debt, and student loan debt that you didn't even get your degree. So you kind of see where all this is going, right? So let's move right along. And here, this might get a little personal. Not for me, but for all of us personally. But when you follow a script your whole life, you start to believe the script is you. So when life doesn't match it, you don't question the system. You question yourself. What's wrong with me? Where did I go wrong? I followed this recipe. Maybe I didn't do something right. That's not your fault. I mean, okay, I'll back up. For some people, it might be. What I'm trying to say here, though, is that it's conditioning and programming. So we're going to touch back onto the millennial shift here. Again, hot take, unpopular opinion, whatever or however you want to look at it here. But honestly, I think the millennial generation is one of the first generations to really start questioning these things out loud. Not in rebellion, but in awareness. I can't tell you how many people I've had conversations with, like deep conversations like this and like my podcast. And we're all like, yeah, well, we can't believe how unaware society, we as a collective, when I say a collective, I mean this side of the world. You know, saying things like, there's more than one way to live life. Success doesn't have to look identical for everyone, and guess what? It's not. There's no such thing as, here's the steps to have a successful life. There you go. And everybody gets a successful life. No. This timeline doesn't actually fit me. If you talk like that, you will probably get looked at like you're crazy. And again, whenever we're talking awareness here, a lot of people are aware. It's just throughout your life, you get conditioned and you get programmed, whether you know that or not, by the way. So fun fact, whether you physically and take action toward programming your mind, your body, and your soul, whether you do that or not, you're still getting programmed, you're still getting conditioned by the things you watch, the things you eat, consume, and all this stuff. You know, questioning isn't disrespect, and that's basically how you get looked at. Like, how dare you question that? Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Why do you have so many questions? Just follow the recipe. What's wrong with you? And it's okay to have questions. And if you do have questions, and if you do have someone who's looking at you like, what's wrong with you? Why do you have all these questions? Find someone who you can have that conversation with. Because nothing's wrong with you. It's just called evolution. It's called you're wanting more information, to make sure you're making the right decision, So, yes. Because the perfect life blueprint we were sold on, it's shifting. Marriage is happening later, or maybe not happening at all for some people. Homeownership is harder than ever before, and not everybody is going to buy a home. Not everybody wants to buy a home. Not everybody wants to get married. Not everybody wants to spend their whole life in schooling and all this stuff. Not everybody wants to have kids. Career paths are no longer linear. I think that's the best way to put it here, is that the societal norms were built for linearization. The whole societal norms were built for linear movement, whereas we all know that it's not just linear. Why people are burning out, and this everything we've been talking about so far is why people have been burning out. The World Health Organization classifies burnout as a workplace-related stress condition. And anxiety levels, especially among younger adults, have significantly increased globally. So when people say something feels off, that's not mindset. That's lived experience meeting reality. This isn't about rejecting everything. It's about noticing what we're actually choosing versus what you inherited. That's the shift and the empowerment, because awareness is the first step out of being on autopilot. So let's go ahead and close this up here before it gets too much longer. I think I've basically touched on everything. Kind of surface level. I wanted this to be a deep and raw, honest conversation for all of us who are, maybe you are on autopilot. Maybe you hear some of these things and you're like, man, I've been on autopilot. Like, haven't you just been doing the same thing every day, like the same routine or something like that? And like, for me personally, I think it hit, going to work day in and day out, right? You go and you work yourself to the bone. You work yourself up into a company, into a corporation, right? And you're doing more, you're doing more, you're doing more, you're doing more. And it's never enough. It's never enough. You work yourself to the bone. You work countless overtime. You bend over backwards for these people, and it's still not enough. So one day I'm on my way to work and I'm like, you know what? There has to be more to life than doing what society has made you believe is successful, or doing what society has made us believe that this is success. This is how success looks. Success is a new car, new home, new this, new that. Well, take a step back. A lot of those things are all materialistic, right? And the moment you have something wrong, or maybe a loved one, maybe you need to be there for a loved one, and you've worked at this company for 20 plus years, and you need to take a leave of absence, maybe, or maybe you need to take PTO. The PTO is the time off that you worked for. You worked yourself to the bone for your PTO. And you get told, oh, you got to take your PTO before the end of the year. It's not going to carry over. But then when you go to try to take your PTO, you get looked at as, oh, you can't do that. That doesn't work for the company. Or, oh, I was pregnant. And I was literally told to get a doctor's note. Now, mind you, I went to all my appointments, and at the end of every appointment, I got a doctor's note because I was afraid to lose my job. Obviously, I can't lose my job because I'm freaking pregnant. Like, there's no way of hiding or faking being pregnant. I cannot tell you, at the end of every doctor's visit at my OBGYN, they looked at me and said, "Are you kidding me? They're making you get a doctor's note?" And I looked at them and I said, "Yeah, isn't that ridiculous?" Ridiculous is putting it very lightly. I think it was absolutely stupid, to put it nicely. Again, I got the doctor's notes. Now, this definitely, while I was pregnant and working for a corporation who, you're only a number. When you're working for someone else, you are only a set of numbers. You're replaceable. I don't give a crap how long you've worked somewhere. I don't care how great of a title that they gave you. And see, these are all things that we're led to believe. Like, you started a company, you work your way up, and ooh, we give you this title, this special title we give you, so that way you feel important. But guess what? You're not. You're not important. The only thing that matters is if you made the company yourself, if you're the CEO, then yeah, I mean, of course, you can still be replaced, but it's a lot less, for lack of better words. I'm trying to find my words. I'm getting very, I guess, excited about all this because I feel like once you experience everything I've been talking about in this episode, it kind of hits home because, like I said, when you have worked your butt off for someone else and you need to take a leave of absence, or you need to be there for a family member, or your kids, like you need to be there for your kids, you get looked at like, how dare you take your PTO? How dare you take a leave of absence? And then it's almost like a punishment. Like, you get looked at like you're gonna be punished or something like that. Like, oh, well, you better do XYZ then if you think you're gonna be taking your PTO, or if you think you're gonna be taking a leave of absence. You know what I mean? So, anyways, I think we all get it. I think I've made my point. If none of that hit home for you, then, I don't know, but I think we can all agree. I think we've all been there to some degree. And I think we're all slowly waking up. I know quite a bit of us, probably a handful of us, are not on autopilot. Again, I'm living my life to the fullest. I'm not going to be waiting until I'm 65 to retire. If it's 65, it might be 72, right? Anyways, we're not talking politics. That's what. But the whole thing is that I'm not waiting until I can retire to live my life. I'm living my life now. And especially being a mom and stuff like that, like we're going to be teaching our kids, like, live your life to the fullest from day one. There's different ways of doing things these days, and we're in the 20th century, on our way out, and it's time to do stuff differently. And I think that's good, again, the goal was never to follow the system perfectly. Maybe the goal is to notice when the system stops fitting you. Because a successful life isn't one that looks right on the outside. It's not surface level, people. If it is for you, you're living the wrong life. That's all I gotta say. It's one that you don't feel like you need to escape from. So, I'm going to leave with this. Questioning the system doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're awake and aware. All right. Again, I hope everybody has enjoyed today's episode. I know, again, it might be kind of a hot take or whatever you want to call it, whatever the kids are calling it these days, right? Anyways, some things to think about. If you have questions, leave them down below in the comments below. You can DM me. All of my social links are in the show notes below. And as always, thank you so much for all the support of this podcast. It definitely does not and will not ever go unnoticed. Of course, check out my book. It's called The Daily Divine, a book of soulful truths and everyday wisdom. You can buy the physical copy. It's an ebook and it's also narrated by me. So, yes, which that might also be an upcoming episode. I am on my narration journey. So, yes, if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned. And I hope you all have a great week. And I will see you all in the next episode. Bye!